everyone, and welcome to the 300th episode of the Kulturecast. I am still your host, Chris Dashew. If you didn't want me to be your host at this point, sorry. I am joined, however, by a rogues gallery of frequent co-hosts, collaborators, and close friends. First off, the co-host of the one-season show, award-winning screenwriter, Jess Byard.
Hello.
Mr. Projection Booth podcast host himself, Mike White.
If yesterday was today, would today be tomorrow?
Oh, Jesus Christ. And lastly, the famous Canadian film director, Canada's first son, as he's known now on the internet, Mr. Matt Campagna.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, boy. You know, the way you say sorry really shows that you are from Canada.
Right? Oh,
sorry.
It's my signature move.
Home place of Molson.
Right?
Delicious beer.
We have some good things here. Yeah.
Is Molson a good thing?
Yeah, beer with a proper.
I love it.
Beer with a proper, it's got a proper alcohol percentage, so it's not like you're drinking water.
Well, that's true.
Like that.
So we are going to be talking about at some point on this podcast Inland Empire, much to the chagrin of probably Mike and Jess. Matt will not be joining us for that. However, I just kind of wanted to get everybody who I consider to be the good co-hosts in a room together. And, I don't know. I don't really know. What do we talk about here? Like, I remember how I met all of you. So that's a fun thing. Like, what did we talk about on the 300th episode? Like, I genuinely have no idea. Like, I don't know.
Like the greatest hits episode?
Yeah. It's like the fucking clip show from The Simpsons where the steamed hams thing came from. The thing about having a podcast is I would never have met any of you otherwise. And at the end of the day for me, and I'm not trying to get sappy, but I'm being dead serious, I never would have met any of you without the podcast. And while the podcast is great and the podcast is fun and it's nice to be able to talk about movies even if my opinion is quote unquote wrong, according to some, which it completely and totally is, it's nice to have friends to suffer, especially in Matt's case, considering the shit that we've watched together. Matt has been some real putrid turds on a stick. And you put yourself through that every time you come on to talk about a DC movie. That's your own choice.
Oh, it's my genuine pleasure to slag on terrible superhero films.
And, there are a lot of them, it seems, recently at least. So that's fun. But yeah, and then with Mike, Mike, I think you were the first guest co-host we ever had who had his own show.
Wow, I'm honored.
Well, I don't know if this is an honor. There's no award at the end of this, so.
Oh, shoot.
You're the most productive co-host.
Well, I do appreciate you flying us all out to this room that we can sit in together.
I forgot to tell you, now it is a saw trap, and only one of us can survive. So
all the way to sunny Nebraska.
Nebraska.
I'm going to start sawing through my leg right now.
Oh, it's not that Saw. It's not from the good Saw
Merely
movie. It's from one of the
Nebraska.
Yeah, but you could only use a cob of corn. And yes, I'm actually trying to remember with Mike. I know the first podcast that you were on. That was the John Cusack barn burner. That is 2012.
Oh my God, yes.
Do you remember
Disaster porn.
Yeah,
Yep.
That movie was a fucking mess. But Matt, the thing with Matt is, and many of you who have not listened far back might know this, the first time I talked to Matt was actually in a more professional capacity. Do you remember that, Matt?
Were we talking about me?
Yeah, we were talking about your movie.
Yeah.
Six Reasons Why.
I do remember that.
Right? Yeah.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah, that was like 4 years ago, something like that, because we did Western Month, and then co-host John was like, oh, I really love this movie. I was like, I never heard of it. And that's when, I had more people to help me out with doing interviews and stuff, and you were like, yeah, sure. And then I think we just struck up a conversation after the fact, and now we're here, and just bad mouthing everyone else.
We just have a good time, and I think that goes a long way.
We have a good time at pretty much everyone else's expense. I don't know the balance on our podcast that you and I have done, Matt, but I want to say we've talked more bad movies than good.
Oh, probably because we have a tendency to talk about Warner Brothers superhero movies. And yikes, they're on a tear.
And Sony's making Spider-Man movies now, so you know those are going to be good.
Yeah, that always turns out so well.
Yeah, but that's the thing, that it really is the thing about doing this podcast that I do appreciate, is everyone is. I think we all have a good time. At least I think I think you guys do. If you didn't, you wouldn't come back.
I mean, I wouldn't have started a show.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because that's the thing. The only thing, Matt, that you don't have in common with Jess and Mike is you and I don't have our own podcast. Mike and I have our own podcast, and Jess and I have our own podcast.
I can't believe you don't yet. I feel like you have to. If you want to be friends with Chris, you have to have a podcast with him. Not like because you say so. It's because the universe says so.
That's just, yeah. This is the way it is. We're now having our own podcast, and we're going to call it the Great White Northcast. And it's going to be only about Canadian films.
Well,
it really helps.
We'll only review Canadian film. Yeah.
It helps cement the relationship.
Yeah.
It's like when you bring in a third.
Whoa.
Right?
What?
The elusive third.
Oh, the unicorn, as they call it, at Lake Superior University. We're looking for a third, but just not a guy, okay? All single men stay away.
No fatties, no femmes.
No, yeah, dude. God, are we all on Bumble and Tinder and Craigslist, or is that just me? Oh no, I'm on Grindr. That's right. Never mind. What was I thinking? But and there were Mike Wallace was supposed to join us, aka Father Malone, aka Shorty 2 Dope, but he is not, because he's, I guess, busy doing something. Washing his tights is probably the answer he would give. So.
Yes.
Washing his tights. But yeah, I mean, again,
That's an excellent reason.
I do, like I said, I do really, I could not have gotten to 300 without y'all's help, because, and not to throw my mainstay co-hosts under the bus, but they weren't exactly the most reliable, but you guys are, so that's the best thing about all this. So.
And we're interchangeable.
Aww.
Aww. And you know, the sad thing is out of the three of you, I've only met Mike in person. I'm meeting so far. Matt and I were, what was it you said that time when I was in Toronto? Ships passing in the night.
Ships passing in the night, my friend.
Yep. Very close. Very close. I was there and you were not. So I was in your hometown.
Yeah, you
stinking
you
it up.
You were coming to my country, and I was going to yours. It was terrible timing.
But when I went to Canada that time, I did not almost get arrested going across the border like I did last year when I went across the border, and they were convinced I was like a drug addict or something. I don't know. I guess you can't tell Canadian border crossing. You can't tell them that you're a writer, is what you can't tell them, because then they look at you and they're like, "That's not a job."
That's not a job.
Yeah. That is what the guy.
You mean you're a writer?
That's what the border crossing guy. He was like, "That's not a job." I was like, "Oh."
I mean, he's right.
Thing, I'm an eater.
Nobody pays you for that.
Or a toothbrusher. Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on. There are people in Canada who probably said that they make maple syrup for a living. So is that not a job?
I had a friend who tried to cross, and he said he was an entrepreneur. And I was like, doesn't that mean drug dealer?
I'm a self-made millionaire. So you smuggle drugs inside of your anus? Yes, actually. How did you know?
I bring things to people.
Exactly. Yeah.
I bring veal sandwiches from Toronto to the great people of the United States. Boy. But yeah, it's Canada. That trip Toronto was a fun time. Too bad you weren't there, because Mike was. That's when I met Mike. So. That was many moons ago. Awesome. Eating Korean barbecue together.
That was so yummy.
Oh, nice.
and then hoping and waiting that Orlando Jones would sit on my lap the way he sat on Mike's.
4 years ago today, apparently.
Today?
I think so.
Holy shit. So I met you 4 years ago, like yesterday.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Well, yeah, like I said, I mean, 5 years of doing anything is a lot. I mean, I know, Mike, you've been doing this longer than I have, but boy, like I don't know about you, Mike, but I sometimes forget, like, about the movies I've done on podcasts. Like, oh yeah, I did that. I forgot about that shit.
Yeah, I'll occasionally get emails where it's like, on this episode you said this, this, and this. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? I recorded that 5 years ago.
Yo, dude, Obama was in the White House then, and I don't remember anything past 2016. Uh-oh. Burr, 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 burr. So, no, I'm right there with you. Like, I know that we talked Alien at one point on the podcast, and now thinking back, I'm like, oh, why the fuck would I talk Alien on the podcast? That's a waste of time. So, no, I hear you. I'm trying to remember what Matt, you and I think the first podcast you and I did together was Return of the Living Dead. Like podcast.
Oh,
podcast.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, because I was like, I need to do some extra Halloween stuff, so.
But the most memorable one to me is
God,
when we discussed the superior Ghostbusters film.
You motherfucker.
Ghostbusters Answer the Call.
It's Ghostbusters 2016, and it's a bad movie. You know what?
I mean, just because it's the best Ghostbusters movie doesn't mean it's a good movie.
What? You notice the silence here? So here's the thing.
You can hear a pin drop.
Here's the thing. Since you've opened this box again, because it happens every time we talk.
Just because it's women, don't say box.
Oh my God! Wow, motherfucker.
No.
I would like to ask Mike and Jess, because this is the only podcast you and I have ever disagreed on, Matt. Ever. What do y'all think of that Ghostbusters 2016 movie? You guys can't like it, right?
Now, bearing in mind, and I'd like to preface it with that.
Oh, I throw myself on the mercy of the court.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like to hear both sides.
Yes, please.
Okay, in between Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2, all of Manhattan forgets about ghosts. And they seem to think the Ghostbusters are like children's entertainers and they were never in existential peril. Which to me means humans can't really keep in their minds the concept of ghosts. There are a few people who can, and they're the people who become the Ghostbusters. But by and large, ghosts can't actually be remembered by humans in this world. And so when 20 years go by, everyone has pretty much forgotten about ghosts. And this creates a world in which all of our Ghostbusters get together in our new generation and build Ghostbusters for the first time. But it's still in the collective unconscious, which is why people are still drawing ghost symbols and Xing them out. And it's why there are still certain people in government who do have the ability to remember what happened in the 80s and then in the 90s. And I feel like this is part of the Ghostbusters cinematic universe. It's just very hyper-dense. There's a lot going on. And
that is the first time anyone has said Ghostbusters 2016 hyper-dense.
Hyper-dense.
I'm sure Paul Feig said it.
I mean, this is Matt Campagna's headcanon. Is what this is.
Yeah, oh, totally.
I mean, that's all. That would be all well and good if that were my problem with the movie. But it's not my problem with the movie.
It was the fact that there's fart and queef jokes in a wonton suit running gag.
It's not a well-written movie, and it's not a no. It's
you know
not.
what, Jess? You just don't like it because it's women, okay?
Yes, that's right. I am a self-hating.
Yeah, that's the only reason, right?
Oh my God.
Oh, so bad.
But no, I'm sorry. I cannot agree. But it's, you know what? You're totally entitled to like that movie.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to try to convince you that you're wrong by liking it. But yeah, just that Paul Feig style of comedy where it's just like we're going to try to riff and throw out 20 punchlines and then we'll keep 19 of them. It's like, please, there's a reason why you have writers, which is to write and to actually have good comedy. And just the way that they riff all the time, it's like, no, this isn't funny. This is not funny.
For the most part, most of those actors are funny, and that they're just not given anything funny to do. And that's not really their fault, but...
Paul Feig is not funny. He is. No, he partners up with people who are funny, but he by himself not a funny person. But I you know what, Matt? Give me your address. I have a deck of Uno Ghostbusters 2016 cards that have your name on them.
Oh, man.
Right here on
Bring it on.
Right here. Give me your address on the podcast so that... No, don't do that. Well, I mean, if you want
so that everyone can send me hate mail.
No one's going to send you hate mail.
They'll send you hate tweets.
Yeah, I genuinely don't think anyone cares about that movie anymore.
No, not even Sony.
There's much more... Yeah, well, that. But I mean, yeah, considering how they're, rebooting Ghostbusters again? Reboot? Question mark?
Yeah. Reboot.
Or reimagining? Or casting children from Stranger Things in a movie once again?
Yeah.
Is it one of the
Works so well for
let's get all
Godzilla.
the miles we can out of those kids.
Isn't one of the kids from Ghostbusters or Stranger Things in that movie?
Yeah,
No
I think so.
idea.
It's not Millie Bobby Brown. She's above that, okay?
Wow. You've worked in both Bobby Brown and Millie Bobby Brown into our conversation.
Yeah, and there was a bunch of slime building under the
Solid.
building. So here's the thing. Ghostbusters 2 is great. I like it a lot, but I see why people don't like it. Ghostbusters 2016, it is a movie that, and Matt, I know you agree with me on this, Matt, it became a thing that it didn't need to be, and I think that also hurt it. It became like a beacon
absolutely.
for,
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. And it's like, Sony, come on, like, fuck you.
Though it was weird that the villain in the movie was basically an internet troll. And it was
Right.
just like,
Like a misogynist incel.
yeah, it was weird that it like kind of was
Well,
Eating its
predicting
own
itself.
lunch. Yeah, it's eating its own lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, not really.
Yeah, and
predicting
an
itself,
unusual
it was still
thing
worth
for-
its time.
Yeah, and an unusual thing for a Ghostbusters movie is that it had a villain at the beginning, middle, and end.
Wow. And the villain was
Yeah,
awful
structure.
the entire
Very-
time.
Very unusual thing for
Here's
Ghostbusters.
here's the weird thing, though, about a Ghostbusters movie with the villain at the beginning, middle, and the end. None of it was funny throughout. So,
That's fair.
except if you talk about fart jokes. And, boy, fart jokes in space. How are we talking about Ghostbusters? God damn, I hate that movie. It's like so here's the thing. I wish it could be Last Jedi because that was another contentious podcast you were on, Matt. But it wasn't contentious because of me.
Yeah.
I just didn't care. Like, that's the thing.
No,
Like,
it was contentious because I genuinely love The Last Jedi.
I mean, I enjoy it.
Silence again!
no. No, I mean, I'm not going to go to bat for that movie. But, I mean, I know a lot of people who will.
No, that's fine.
And then The Last Jedi is just going to undo The Last Jedi is going to undo everything that anyone cares about and completely shit the bed. So it's fine.
Exactly.
Well, and to be honest, if the ninth movie is somehow disappointing, then it means what happened in the eighth one led to just disappointment, which makes
Did you
me
say
less excited about it.
somehow
But,
disappointing?
yeah,
They're bringing
I'm
back
expecting
Emperor
the ninth film in this
Palpatine.
series to be pretty good, which thank goodness, like that worked really well in the extended universe. So
I'm hoping that it's not just Return of the Jedi, because I think that's what it's going.
What do you mean? Return of the Jedi was just a new hope.
Yeah. I mean, I just want Ewoks. Is that too much to ask for? Caravan of Courage. Great live action movies. So again, this was kind of our little, I don't know, like just talking about whatever. So spending 20 minutes doing this. So yeah, 300 episodes. That's a thing that happened.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yes.
And
Why?
how much time has this taken? Like,
So
how long have you been doing this?
So here's the thing, and this is something I talked with Mike about. We got to 200 episodes in like 3 years. Because at the beginning, I was doing 2 podcasts a week, 2 movies a podcast. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was two, and then on top of that, there were interviews for like every single podcast, and then each podcast had a guest on it. So some of those podcasts, the early ones, are like 5 hours long. I don't remember how long the Hannibal podcast is that you were on, Mike, but I think that was like 5 hours, something like that.
It was a long one, yeah.
Yeah, and then the Freaked podcast was like 8 hours long. And then we did a Saw podcast that was broken up into 3 parts. So,
Oh my God! Wow.
yeah, it was. Those were the Wild West times of the podcast. Like it was too much. Like it was and I know it was too much now. Like I could never get anyone to commit to that now.
There's no way.
Well, I mean, I forgot to tell you guys, you're all invited to do Star Wars episode 1 through 9 before the new movie comes out. We're gonna do a podcast on that. It's almost like there's not someone else here who doesn't do long podcasts sometimes. Mike White. And Mike, what was it? You did a 7-hour podcast on one movie though, right?
Yeah, on Conan.
Jesus Christ.
You could say
Brad deserves it.
I mean, you could say we also talked about Conan the Destroyer and the Conan remake, but it was primarily dedicated to Conan the Barbarian.
I was about to say, I don't think anyone wants to talk about that Conan remake. Not even the people who made the movie.
Little Red Sonja.
Oh my, yeah, Bryan Singer.
Oh God.
Remember Bryan Singer, guys? Boy,
The child molester?
Well, everyone's trying to make sure we don't. Yeah.
Yes, the child molester. One and the same, and we do not need to let anyone forget that he molested children.
Yeah, but nobody should ever talk about who directed Bohemian Rhapsody. That movie directed itself as far as the Oscars are concerned.
Well, I'm pretty sure Rami Malek's teeth directed it. Like, the fake teeth. The fake teeth. The fake teeth that won him an Oscar. Because fuck us. This truly is the darkest timeline.
Oh, yeah. Basically, you wear dentures and you got an Oscar coming your way. It doesn't matter.
Sit in a wheelchair like Eddie Redmayne, Oscar coming your way, bro.
Put on black sunglasses.
Blacks. Oh, yeah. Or just mildly look like Ray Charles.
Yeah.
At least Jamie Foxx sang in Ray.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And if you're a truly beautiful actress, if you act ugly, in other words, if you have a makeup department that can make either Charlize Theron or Halle Berry look not like A-list movie stars.
Right, but Monster is good.
Fair, but it's really the makeup. It's really the makeup that makes it or breaks it.
What's what isn't the one with Nicole Kidman with the big nose? Didn't she win an Oscar for that?
The Hours?
Yeah, that one. Fake nose wins me Oscar. I mean, apparently that Joker movie, Joaquin Phoenix is going to get an Oscar for it, guys.
Because he lost some weight.
Yeah.
I mean, count it right here.
Did he?
September 4th, 2019, I'm predicting it. Joaquin Phoenix is going to win an Oscar because the Academy is too stupid not to give it to him. We got to stay hip,
the
guys.
The Academy Awards isn't exactly a benchmark of quality.
Of nothing.
Yeah.
It is a benchmark of being out of touch. It is like 20 years behind reality because the Green Book won, guys. The Green Book.
Don't remind me.
Well, I just did. But yeah, so I don't remember what we did for the 100th episode. I know what we did for the 200th episode because Mike was here.
Holy shit.
You were here for the 200th episode. Do you remember what we did?
Nope.
End of Days.
Oh, God.
The movie that was shot through a fucking mud filter.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I do remember what we did for the 100th episode. We did Planet of the Apes 2001.
Oh. Yeah.
That movie is a spectacular failure.
Things get very apocalyptic when you guys, whenever you guys have the chance to pick something round. It's like, oh, we're hitting 100. Let's do something apocalyptic and terrible.
Oh, boy.
Why are we doing Zack Snyder's 300 on this episode? That's what I want to know.
That's just like taking candy from a baby. But I know Matt will go to bat for that movie because I think last time we talked, you did.
It's pretty much the only Zack Snyder movie he's done that I like.
I like his remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, but that's because James Gunn wrote the script.
Yeah.
And James Gunn is a child molester too, right?
Watchmen, I think, is a pretty great adaptation of an unfilmable comic book. It's a hell of a shot. And I like parts of it. I think it's varying degrees of successful, but those are the only two things Zack Snyder's done that I'm into.
I mean, I can't wait for him to do an Atlas Rising movie or whatever.
Is that the prequel to Atlas Shrugged?
Yeah, or I don't know what it's like. It's not Atlas Shrugged. It's like something else that Ayn Rand wrote. And I'm just like, why are you doing this, Zack Snyder?
Fountainhead.
Is that what it is?
Be
it's
cool
not
if you did
usually
Anthem.
what it is.
Yeah, be cool if you did Anthem. It'd be 45 minutes long.
It would be cool if Zack Snyder just didn't make anything.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, Zack Snyder is Michael Bay, but not self-aware. Michael Bay at least has the wherewithal to know, I blow shit up and people like it. Okay, Zack Snyder's like, I'm elevating this. This is much better than it needs to be, because Superman needs to kill people in his first movie. Thanks, man.
Yeah, Zack does not really know how the DC universe works, and unfortunately, it seems neither does Goyer.
Neither does anyone who's working on the DC universe. I mean, we're getting like 8 different things now. There's Joker, which is DC Dark, or what the fuck it's called. Like, that's now its own thing. And then the DCEU that doesn't exist anymore.
Depending on how this goes.
Yeah. Robert Pattinson's like, I'm going to be in with Joaquin. Never mind. No, I'm not. I can't spoil it because it may not even happen. So.
Yeah.
Fucking God. But, you know what I thought about doing for this podcast before, because it was kind of, I'm not going to blame Jess because it was my idea as well. We had the conversation. She's like, you should do this. And I was like, yeah, it's a good idea. Sure, why not?
No, I did not say you should do this. What I said was we were talking about David Lynch movies, and I said I've never watched Inland Empire, but at some point I probably should. And you said, well, that's what we're doing.
A week later. Oh, right. Yeah. No, you're right. That was a conversation. So it's my fault. I take full responsibility. We should have done Godzilla 1999.
I don't know. I think it's totally normal for someone to mix up at some point at a milestone. That makes perfect sense, Chris.
I mean, here's the thing. We should have done Godzilla 1999. The best
in 1999, I liked that movie.
The best American-made Godzilla film. I will stand by that.
Oh, them's fighting words.
I mean, have you seen the newest one? It is fucking trash.
I mean,
it's really boring.
But certainly better filmmaking than Godzilla 99. Oh,
I bet Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin can take a joke. Don't think Mike Doherty can. I have proof.
No.
He may or may not have put me on a list on his Twitter profile for something I said about his movie.
Ouch.
Hey man, it's whatever. I mean, if you want to have a movie that has a shitload of religious allegory in it, your movie's not subtle. Last time I checked, if you have framing a shot with a cross in the foreground and King Ghidorah on a volcano in the background, why don't you just take the cross and beat me over the fucking head with it? So, the movie's bad. I mean, did anyone like Godzilla 2014? Is that a thing? Like,
I love
Godzilla movies.
I mean, I like Godzilla a lot, but not American-made Godzilla, unless it's got Matthew Broderick.
I mean, I went to the movie theater, and I saw the 2014 one, and there were some cool Godzilla moments, and I left the theater, and then I really didn't think about the movie anymore, so... Yeah. They don't really leave much.
Yeah, I thought the 2014 one and the new one had the advantage over the 99 one in that it looks like Godzilla.
Oh no, I'd much rather watch the.
That went a long way for my.
Wait, you'd much rather watch the 1999 one
than the newest one? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I can at least be entertained by it.
It's fun. It's stupid. Fun. It's got like 3/4 of the cast of The Simpsons in it. Like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Just as a point of fact, that came out in 1998.
Oh, oops.
Oh, wow. So I was 8.
All I know is about Puff Daddy going, "Come with me," with the fucking Jimmy Page guitar in the background. And Yokero Taco Bell? Oh, man. God. That movie was a thing.
Oh, yeah. Now he was trying to do raptors with the babies.
Oh, my God, the baby raptors. Oh, that's the best part of the movie.
Bob Dylan's kid did a song for that, too, right?
All Along the Godzilla Tower? No? What are we talking about? Bob Dylan? Like Bob Dylan?
No, Bob Dylan's kid.
Oh.
Was the lead singer of a band. I can't remember what the band was. Was it Jacob Dylan?
Jacob Dylan, that sounds about right, yeah.
Shit. I don't remember what his...
Flash in the Pan cover.
Let me guess, though. That's probably Jacob with a K, right?
I think it's spelled regular.
Oh, we can only hope.
No, it is Jacob with a K.
Oh, is it? Holy shit.
Yeah.
I believe the name of the band was the Wallflowers.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
At the end of the day, though, Godzilla 1999, stupid as fuck, but so much fun.
Just as a point of fact, that was 1998.
Okay, whatever, man. You know what, Godzilla? Well, I don't know what to say. I just don't know why I thought it was 1999. Like, why would I think that?
And I just like being an internet troll and correcting you on your own show.
That's fine. Does it matter what year it came out? It still has Jean Reno in it.
It doesn't matter what year it came out. Who gives a shit?
People on the internet do.
Yeah.
Jean Reno is in that movie, pretending to be Elvis at one point. Wow. Giant earthworms. Nick Totopoulos. They named him after the creature effects guy because his name was hard to say. So they were like, let's make this into a joke. Or the best part of that movie, that Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich were so pissed at Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel that they put them in the movie.
Yeah, Mayor Ebert.
Oh my God! What a bunch of fucking sensitive bastards. They didn't like Independence Day. Let's put them in the Godzilla movie. Okay. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. Well, yeah. So 300 episodes. So that's why we're here, and that's the thing. So Matt, I probably should let you go.
I was going to say, I think it's time for me to take my leave while you guys discuss what will no doubt be as monumental as the 200th and 100th film. And we can only hope that the 400th film will somehow rise to the challenge.
The 400th. You know what we should do right now? We should pick what the 400th movie is, because whatever it is at this point, if it's by a fucking Survivor tribe vote, is gonna be something just fucking like, it should be that fucking movie where the kid does blackface to get into college. You know what? Mike knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, Soul Man.
Soul Man?
Oh boy. Or I would do Suburban Commando again, because I love that movie, but we've already done it.
I would do Soul Man for the 400.
Yes.
Soul,
there you go.
Soul Man.
So you can get Ray Don Chong.
It is sealed. That's what's happening, man.
So if we're still here in what year is it? 2019. If we're still here in 2021.
2029.
2020, 10 years. Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm taking a real fucking sabbatical. If we're here in 2021 or 2020 or however the fuck long ago it is from now, 2021, we'll talk about Soul Man, a movie that if you don't know what it's about, you'll never be able to unknow what it's about when you're done. So that's what we're doing for the 400th episode. So Matt, I will let you go. Thank you so much for taking a little bit out of your time tonight.
My pleasure, guys, and I will be happy to update you on the various TIFF films as I hit them up.
Are they showing?
Joker will be one of them. So.
Are they showing Joker?
Yes. Of course they
Joker's
are.
one of them. Jojo Rabbit's going to be there. I'm excited for that. That's Taika's new one about Nazis, and it looks hilarious. There's some pretty great stuff at the festival this year, so I will keep you posted.
The
no
thing
Tarantino?
about TIFF is what's fantastic is that, it takes place right after Labor Day, and you get to see all the movies that will be released by the beginning of October. So it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was there last time, there were posters all over for Magnificent Seven.
Yep.
And Magnificent Seven was showing in the festival, because that's worth a festival entry.
It sure was, wasn't it? That was the year that we were both there.
Yep.
It's funny the way TIFF has to balance its programming between movies that are coming out in a minute from a studio and really great, interesting cinema that you will never have a chance to see anywhere else other than potentially highballtv.com, because, Highball TV is a site where you can watch film festival movies.
Yes, plug it. I was going to give you a chance to, but there you go.
I also happen to have co-founded Highball TV for that very reason, but I think it's worth checking out.
It's so people can see Magnificent Seven at home, right?
Oh, God, but not on Highball TV.
Anywhere but here. My platform doesn't support Empire. Bum, bum, bum.
From Hollywood, California, where stars make dreams and dreams make stars.
Do you want to see?
You have a new role to play, I hear.
Up for a roll.
No, I definitely heard that you have it. Action.
Damn! This sounds like dialogue from our script.
Cut it. What the bloody hell's going on?
It was good. Oh, please.
Our producers know the history of this film, and they've taken it on themselves not to pass on that information to us. Purposefully.
Something's wrong. Do you love me? It's a story that happened yesterday, but I know it's tomorrow. Don't you remember anything? How it was?
So, the film was directed by David Lynch, written by David Lynch. It is quite possibly his final film. We don't know if he is ever going to make anything else. He has said that film is dead, and then he goes on to correct himself and says, no. Actual film is dead. I don't shoot on film anymore. I shoot digital. Okay, so you're not done yet. Stars Laura Dern, Jeremy Irons, Justin Theroux. It stars a lot of people, but those are the main ones. And if I tried to give a synopsis for the film, I think I would be trying to explain a film that's not this one. Because this is postmodern art.
Yeah.
In film form. So, with that in mind, Jess, we're talking David Lynch again. I'm sorry. What did you think of was it your first time watching Inland Empire, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started watching Inland Empire probably sometime shortly after it came out, maybe 2007-ish. So I'd have been in high school and not at all appreciative of it. And quite honestly, still not all that appreciative of it. Look, I know it's experimental film, and I enjoy that. It's just that I enjoy it more in short film form. And again with the 3-hour-long run times with this movie, and almost 3 hours in Lost Highway.
You sound like physically beaten. You sound beaten down like by this movie.
I finished watching it right before this podcast, pretty much. I did watch it in sections, I think I probably split it into 2.5-hour sections. And there are parts that I like. I will say that I do like it a bit more than Lost Highway, because I think that the characters are at least more interesting. The acting is obviously way more engaging, with Laura Dern being your prime lead throughout the whole movie, as opposed to Balthazar Getty. But
that's a low bar.
Hey, I know, but Laura Dern is fantastic, and I do love her in this, and I love her in Blue Velvet, which I love. And it's a shame, Chris, because I don't think we're going to get to talk about too many of the David Lynch movies that I actually like on this podcast. And I do apologize to your listeners that I think that aside from maybe the one thing I'm doing in October, it's pretty much just going to be me talking about David Lynch movies for the next month.
Well, and here's the thing, we did do David Lynch month, and on the last podcast where we talked about Lost Highway, I did mention that, and we covered so much of the other stuff. The only things we haven't covered Lynch-wise at this point, now that Inland is out of the way, or will be.
Not out of the way yet.
It's true. We're still here. I believe in December, right? That's what we had said?
Yeah.
Cat's out of the bag. We're doing David Lynch again. We're finishing up the filmography. We're doing Elephant Man. We're doing Wild at Heart. We're doing The Straight Story, and we're doing Mulholland Drive, the 4 that I haven't seen at this point. So you'll get to talk about something you like, but you don't get to talk about the stuff you love, like Twin Peaks or Blue Velvet or Dune.
Eraserhead.
Dune? No?
Dune I haven't seen.
Kwisatz Haderach?
Dune is one of my favorite films ever.
Is it really?
Just rewatched it again last weekend. Yep.
Did you know that he is the Kwisatz Haderach?
He is. How can this be?
How can this be? Oh my God. Yeah. No, we're doing Elephant Man, Dune, Wild at Heart, The Straight Story, and Mulholland Drive. That's right. Because December is a long, long month. So, so you will get to talk about David Lynch movies that you love. I promise.
Yes, that's true.
Or haven't at least seen. So, speaking of that, Mike, I'm curious, before you give me your thoughts, did you, like Jess and I, have to watch this movie piecemeal?
Well, I was very fortunate. The first time I saw this movie, I saw it at the theater. So I got to sit through the entire thing in a theatrical experience, which made it look a lot less like garbage compared to the version that I watched over the weekend and then again today. Because, man, oh man, did it look terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that those scenes were going to not be throughout. Like, I watched this movie a long time ago, and I didn't remember it looking this bad.
Well, you probably watched it in, 2008 or so. And then
something like that, yeah.
At that point, I mean, he shot on a Sony Handycam, so it wasn't that far dated at that point. So it probably didn't look quite so shitty. But, yeah, watching it tonight really, wow, that's a style. It's just not one I like.
And yeah, I did end up watching it in chunks over the weekend and then again today when I watched it. Actually, tonight, I just so you know, Chris, my appointment got canceled, so I ended up coming home at 6 o'clock, starting the movie, and I was just wrapping it up as we were starting to record.
Yeah, so I actually watched it twice as well. I mean, you're saying you watched it twice, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I watched it twice as well.
I mean, not counting the 2007 time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, this would have been similarly my third time now. It is a movie that, oh, Jesus. Like, it's not bad. Like, because I don't think calling it bad is really fair. It is a film that, and we've said this before about other directors' films, it requires your full and undivided attention. You cannot sit and fuck around on your phone. You cannot sit and fuck around on your computer. You cannot sit and fuck around fucking. You can't do anything. You're not going to fuck to this movie anyways. But, I mean, if you do, write us, send me a DM so we can talk about what you're into.
Oh, it was those titties. Those titties were fantastic.
Those titties were fantastic. Yeah, boy, isn't that a line? The rabbits. Yeah, it was the rabbits. There's a lot to like here. It is almost a one-woman show with Laura Dern being given every hey, go crazy, Laura Dern, do whatever. And look, I remember at the time, one of the things I do remember was they were really pushing hard, at least Lynch was, to try to get her a Best Actress nomination. And honestly, I would say if we could go back in time, and again, we were just shit-talking the living hell out of the Oscars, but if you could go back in time and nominate her, it would make more sense than, and I can't believe that this was a thing. I don't even remember this, and you guys are probably going to be like, wait, what? That was a thing? Ellen Page got nominated for Juno. So.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, look, this is the Laura Dern show from the get-go. And whether or not her character is real in the film is up for debate. But it's such a character piece. And it's it's not a movie, it's performance art, it's experimental postmodern film. It's just, I mean, look, David Lynch shot this over 3 years without a script. This is just like
improv.
It's improv, but not like Ghostbusters 2016 improv where it's like, hey, this is a 5-minute scene, but we're going to film for 9 hours with them saying funny fart jokes. Like, this is just fucking weird monologues. And Laura Dern screaming into the camera and running at the camera and doing just weird stuff. And it works. I don't know if it works because it's David Lynch or if it works because Laura Dern is such a good actress, or maybe a mix of the two.
I think it's definitely a mix of the two. I think that, I find the Laura Dern, David Lynch filmmaking relationship really interesting. And I find Laura Dern's career really interesting. And I think that, movies like this, that, like we said, that it's experimental. There's not a lot of, the narrative is very loose. It's more like a dream. This is pretty much, Laura Dern has an epileptic seizure-induced fever dream for 3 hours. Is how I kind of viewed it, with, at least for me anyway. And I think that he brings out something in her, in her acting ability that you don't get to see in other performances. And I think here, she's just totally let loose.
I mean, so many people only know her from one thing. So,
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's all a lot of people know her from, which is unfortunate because she's such a good actress. I'm not saying Jurassic Park is a bad movie. Frankly, it might be one of the best films from the 90s. But she is such a good actress in everything else you'll see her in that when you watch Jurassic Park and then you watch something else like Blue Velvet, like Inland Empire, you're like, that's the same actress who... She's not given much to do in Jurassic Park.
Well,
and in this,
you see Wild at Heart.
Yeah, well, exactly, which I haven't seen, so I can't comment. I'm sure she's great in that, because, again, she's great in everything. Everything I've seen her in, Lynch or not Lynch, she's fantastic. But I think you're right, Jess. I mean, she completely just, her and Lynch, something special. The only thing, actually, I take this back, the only thing I've seen Laura Dern in that was not good, something we recently just talked about, fucking Last Jedi. What a shame. What a waste of her in that movie. But her with Lynch is fantastic. Mike, were you saying something?
Nope.
Okay.
I was going to complain that Admiral Holdo should have told him the plan. Just tell him the plan.
I swear to God, Mike.
Tell him the plan. I mean,
hi, I'm Mike White, and I am professional internet troll Mike White. Look, man, the Holdo maneuver? Fuck you. Fuck you, internet. God. But there's a lot to unpack here. There really is.
Hell yes, there is. And that's the thing I like about David Lynch is just like the rhymes, the visual rhymes, the references and the dialogue, and then something will maybe trigger like, oh yeah, like, you know, oh that's similar to this, or, you know, like even in this movie especially, the sets are almost a character unto themselves, like, and the locations are so important in the way that they either tie together or don't tie together. I mean, we're jumping from wherever, Los Angeles to Poland, with basically like her holding her hands up over her face and then pulling them down, and now they're in Poland. And it's just like, okay. And just trying to figure out where you're at spatially is such a challenge, but it's a good challenge. It's a challenge I'm up to.
Yeah, and I in contrast with Lost Highway that we talked about last time, where I was just looking at that movie is just genuinely unpleasant, just in its color scheme and everything. And contrasted with this with Inland Empire, in particular the rabbit setup, which I think is probably one of my favorite aspects of Inland Empire, is the interwoven, strangely timed rabbit sitcom. I find those just, that room, I want to live in it. It looks kind of like an oil painting. Like if you went in, it would just be really soft and puddly almost.
Well, and the thing about the rabbit, not interstitials, but I don't know, again, trying to explain how parts of this movie exist in relation to other parts is like a nightmare. It was its own thing.
Right, it was its own web series, yeah. So I was so surprised when it showed up in the movie the first time. I was like, oh, he's recycling stuff from the web, so that's an interesting way of going about it. But then he integrates it so well that you would never know that it was a separate thing.
Right, it feels like it should be there.
Yeah, and it makes sense in the context of everything that's happening, because there's stuff that they talk about that is almost, well, it's not almost, again, it's very, if David Lynch is sitting here trying to say, well, I shot it without a screenplay and, you know, scene by scene, I believe that, but at the same time, the Rabbit web series existed before this came out, and it had to have influenced this in some form or fashion, because there are narrative through lines. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked about that last week with Lost Highway, with the Twin Peaks connection.
Exactly, yeah, the Twin Peaks universe. And then, I mean, this movie in many ways, like I said with Lost Highway, and it's such close relationship to Mulholland Drive. This movie, I think, you know, definitely echoes Mulholland Drive in a big way. And it's interesting because it's like him sort of doing a little bit of a retrospective, a little bit coming through and doing a different side of Mulholland that I really enjoy. And that's where I think Laura Dern shines the most, where she gets to have those individual scenes, like her standout monologues and her just total emotional breakdowns.
Not only would I say that it's a retrospective of that, but even talking again about the locations, like the location, I guess I'll just put it, the one where we see the prostitutes the most, not on the street, but the house there, it so reminds me of Ben's pad in Blue Velvet. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but every time they go to that location, I just picture like the kind of, I guess they were like heavier prostitutes sitting on the couch in the back, and then Frank and Ben and the boys are up in the front. But it just feels like it's shot from that same distance.
Oh, absolutely, I can see that. And I mean, the Rabbit website, the Rabbit background has a lot of Blue Velvet feelings towards it. I mean, like the that weird place that Dennis Hopper, you know, takes Kyle MacLachlan, where they're all hanging out and everybody's just sort of waiting around. They have that same sort of dingy color that just feels so worn and lived in.
Well, and I saw a lot of Lost Highway in this movie. Just, I mean, like, while there are scenes like the ones y'all are talking about, there are a lot of scenes devoid of any style. And that is Lost Highway as well.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
not style, but like devoid of anything. Not exciting. Like, it's a lot of, like you mentioned last week, Lost Highway is very drab, and that's intentional. Right. And a lot of this film falls under that same category. I mean, the first act, the first hour of this movie is not drab, but as soon as she goes through the door marked Axon N, it completely just goes off the rails and becomes that's when like the stream of consciousness part of the film starts. But before that, it's almost just like a normal narrative. I mean, you have characters just sitting talking to each other. Like, I mean, yeah, there's nothing weird going on. I mean, Grace Zabriskie shows up and starts saying, kind of have these weird monologues, but like, it's kind of just, up until she goes into that door, it's kind of just like not generic, but what I expect from David Lynch when he's like not doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. Though you've got that weird framing device of the prostitute.
Sure.
And the way that she and the John are blurred out and then going from black and white to color, and her are sitting on the edge of the bed watching TV, and then we actually get to see parts of Rabbits, parts of Grace Zabriskie, just a bunch of stuff on that TV set. I mean, and then we keep going back to her. It's almost like it's her story for a while.
I would say it's her story throughout.
Yeah, though somehow Laura Dern is also the protagonist of that thing, and then we never know if it's necessarily an act, if it's being shot as a movie, or if it's real life. And then I don't think Laura Dern even knows what it is.
So the way I interpreted the film was that the prostitute, it's like Lost Highway. She is playing out something in her own head. And unlike Lost Highway, where it's, trapped in a physical space, being prepared to be murdered, it is her, like, trying to erase the sins of her past and move past where she is as a person. And that's the Laura Dern character. I mean, at the end of the film, Laura Dern kills the Phantom, and who just looks like the prostitute's pimp, right? At least that's what I thought. And so that's the way I interpret it, because Laura Dern's character disappears at the end. Mm-hmm. But again, I mean, like, that's the thing about David Lynch. He has said, I'm not going to tell you what it's about, because A, it's not about anything in his mind, but B, he doesn't want to dissuade people from finding their own meaning in his films.
Right. For me, I was watching this and I was talking to my husband, and it was during the scene where one of the women just kept asking, who is she? Who is she? And I think that, like, just overwhelmingly, if you're looking at the core David Lynch filmography, like Blue Velvet, this movie, Eraserhead, just Twin Peaks, all of that, there's the common thread of the mystery woman. And I think that harkens definitely back to, like, the story that he tells of his childhood about he and his, I think, brother were walking down the street and they saw this woman going down the street and she was badly beaten. And, that happened in, I think, the 50s or whatever. And I think that everything that he does, I think, calls back to that. And there's a lot of his transcendental meditation influence on this, especially being 2006. Like, he was definitely far into it by then. I mean, I don't know how long he's been actually involved in that, but it seemed to me that it's like this mystery woman who has to, like you said, Chris, who is trying to, like, conquer sins of her past, or just kind of, like, purge these feelings, or these bad things that she did, or things that may have happened to her, so that she can kind of be reborn. And her as this actress, that's being the perfect career for her, to be reborn into these different roles, which I think then leads to her, creating this fantasy world.
I mean, it's another fugue state. It really, and like, that I'm okay with that if that's what this movie was going for, because after Lost Highway, pretty used to it.
Yeah, Lynch is definitely one of those where I just like to sit and let the movie kind of wash over me, and then try to pick out those similarities, try to pick out those themes, those echoes from one area to another. It's like, oh, okay, the title of the play of the movie that they're doing was 47, and then the room number is 47, and I think by being open to it, you can just just you don't necessarily have to understand it all, but you can at least start, drawing some connections and drawing some, connecting a couple dots. But you might look at the picture afterwards and be like, yeah, I still can't make out what it is, but at least I had a fun time watching it.
Oh, yeah. I think that, and that's what comes down to a different for me between this and Lost Highways. I had a lot more fun with this.
Mm-hmm.
I was more entertained. I was more engaged. I felt the characters, at least I bought the characters more. I was engaged with them. I felt that they, were real people, even if they were in this weird situation. More so than the sort of one-dimensional, tropey characters of Lost Highway.
What about Balthazar Getty, though?
I do, much like Lost Highway, I think that this movie, and we talked about the Rabbit series being a web series. I think this movie would be really well suited as like maybe a mini series or a series of vignettes, something like that, rather than one long fluid piece, which is his what he wants. That's his intentional. It's his visual style. But I think that it would. I don't know. I think it would be nice to have those like bite-sized just chunks to just chew on. And plus, I think he could get in more detail if he did them.
Well, it'd be nice, too, if you could watch this out of order a little bit. And so you could see, like, here's all the scenes in Poland. Here's all the scenes of her in that kind of interrogation type scenario. Here's all of whatever, and just be able to piece those things together in your own way so that you're, because 3 hours, I don't know, I just feel like I cannot pay attention necessarily sitting down watching a television doing this, because there are the distractions of life. That's why I preferred watching this in the movie theater. I enjoyed it a lot more as a movie experience because I was just there just for that. But yeah, otherwise it's like, okay, if I could click through it and be able to just see some of these things and then juxtapose them the way that I wanted, oh, that's cool.
Right. And yeah, like you start to get, in any 3 hour long movie, fine, you probably start to get antsy. And this movie, you start to get lost, and the second you start to look away, then you missed something.
Yeah, exactly.
Something drastic. And yeah, I just think having those chunks to like you said, move around, be malleable, just, engage with more would be, and that's just me, I guess, more as a fan being like, I want more time with your work, I guess. But that's a testament to the movie itself.
It's neat to see, too, how he was kind of experimenting with some things in here that he would then bring back in, like, Twin Peaks The Return with, like, the Penderecki music and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. Like, as I heard that music, I was like, oh, that's really similar to that Hiroshima song that he used in the 8th episode of the show. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, same composer. No wonder. So it's just his work to me always feels like it's all one huge piece, from Eraserhead or even the shorts to what he's doing now. It just all feels like he's doing these variations on a theme, and it's almost nice to be able to pick up, even some of those things where it's like, oh, well, hey, look at that picture behind Gordon's desk. That's the same picture that's over Henry's armoire in Eraserhead. It's just like all of those connections that go throughout.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, the way that this film ends, the kind of the final scene, and I'm not talking about the final scene of the film, I'm talking about the credits.
Yeah.
If this is his final film, and he makes no more films, and we're not talking about Twin Peaks The Return, which I have heard people say that is his best film. Again, it's not a film. It's a long fucking experience, and calling it a film is discounting what it is. If this is his final film, that feature film, I think that the final scene of his final film sums up his career pretty perfectly. It's got parts from other things that he's done in it, and it has that weird thing that only David Lynch can do, where he's juxtaposing music with just bizarrely surreal imagery. Prostitutes dancing, a guy sawing a log, a monkey in a cage, Laura Dern, Laura Herring showing back up for ostensibly one scene in this film. Mm-hmm. There's callbacks to everything else he's ever done in that scene, and it feels kind of like, the best of in one little scene.
You know, and while I do love Cinnamon so much, especially that rendition by Nina Simone, it's not my favorite musical sequence in this movie.
No.
Wow.
That would have to be
not when the other one's in there.
Yeah, the locomotion scene is fantastic. And, you know, Laura Dern, yes, she's fantastic, but Mary Steenburgen, it's like I didn't even recognize her in this movie. It took me till I heard her voice for long enough before I was like, who the fuck is this person that's sitting there with the screwdriver sticking out of her? And then it finally clicked. I finally recognized her voice. What a great performance she gives in this film.
Yeah, I would agree.
What about Terry Crews? He's in this movie.
God, that scene.
That's the best scene in this film.
Oh, that scene is so awkward. I love it. That Asian lady speaking in that broken English for so long. Oh, my God. Wow.
Follow the light. I will leave the light on for you. And then cut. And then it goes cut and it comes away and it was the film.
Yep.
It's just there, you know, as much as I don't think any one of us were really looking forward to talking about this movie for a number of reasons, because, again, this movie is not easily approachable. It is a film that I would say, for myself, is still in the top 3 David Lynch movies.
Really?
Yeah.
I would not say that.
I would say it's probably my 3rd favorite.
Wow.
Again, I haven't seen 5 other ones, so it may get knocked off.
Yeah.
But it's a film that's just interesting. It's an interesting watch.
Yeah.
And I agree. And I am glad that I watched it. Like, I am glad that we did end up picking this movie for the 300th episode, because quite honestly, I mean, I probably was never really going to find the time to sit down and watch Inland Empire just by myself, just because. I mean, especially with that, I would be so distracted. I would never have actually gotten through it. Even if I did sit and watch it, I would have been distracted through most of it. But because I was watching it for this, I wanted to be a bit more, wanted to pay attention so I could talk about it. And while I don't love it, it's definitely not in my top 3. I don't even know if it's in my top 5. Probably not.
That's half of his films. He only has 10. He only has 10. Exactly. So.
And it is interesting, and it is, especially for 2006, for this kind of experimental film to be like happening. And yeah, obviously it didn't happen on a wide scale. I mean, this wasn't at your local movie theater opening Friday night, but it's still an achievement that like he was able to do something like that. And it's also, good for David Lynch for being like, this is probably his most auteur-y movie, because he did fucking everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he shot it. He did most of the,
it's got that great cameo
for it. Yeah. So this is sort of his pet project. And while it's not entirely for me, and I don't love all of it, and I don't need to really revisit it, I'll probably revisit parts, and I will go back and rewatch like the Rabbit series all, together. But I appreciate it, and I do think that it is an achievement in filmmaking, especially for that time period when nothing really like that was happening anymore.
It reminds me a little bit of his Industrial Symphony that he did in the, what was that, mid-90s, I think it was, where it was like Julie Cruz and Michael Anderson, and it was just, again, it was like 100% experimental kind of stuff, and it was just like, okay, this is nice that he can do this. And that's pretty much it. It's just that he is able to not have to be beholden to a narrative, that he can do these experimental things still as a feature project.
Well, and here's the thing. So we're doing all these callbacks to previous Kulturecast episodes. Last time you were on, Mike, we talked, or not last time, but the time before last, we talked about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and how, and I've heard this from a lot of people, including the guys over at Red Letter Media, whose opinions I still take into account, but they seem a little bit disillusioned recently. I don't know why. They talk about how Tarantino movies are an event now. We haven't gotten a David Lynch movie in 13 years.
Right.
Like, these movies, if another one ever comes out, which I don't know about y'all, but I hope we get something else. I mean, look, Twin Peaks: The Return, if that's how he goes out of his career and he's done, is Twin Peaks: The Return. It's a damn good way to end your career.
Hell yes.
But if he releases another film, that will be a fucking event.
Oh, absolutely.
I guarantee it. Especially for people that love film as much as, you, me, any of us who have been on this podcast, anyone who loves film and knows about David Lynch, that will be an actual event.
Oh, I mean, we have, so I live in Ohio, and in Columbus, there's a theater, and I think it's called Studio 35. I might be wrong on that. But one of the guys who does some programming there has been programming a David Lynch series, and he's actually been working, like, he brought Ray Wise and to the theater and is going on tour now and doing all these different David Lynch retrospectives at different theaters and things like that. So hell yeah, I mean, things like that are already happening in little spots all over the country. And if he actually came out with another feature-length film, it does not matter how long it is. People will go see it.
Well, the thing is, like, look, I think as much as I like Twin Peaks: The Return, I know a lot of people I know who watched Twin Peaks: The Return as the first thing they ever watched of Twin Peaks.
Oh, that was so wrong.
Like, that was Twitter when that show came.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, like, not trying to be a dickhead, but y'all are fucking dumb, first off, because you should not have done that.
Even people that did watch the original and
hated it.
Did you guys forget? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Pete fucking Travers. It was just like, that's it. I'm out. He lasted like 2 episodes. I was like, what is your problem, man?
This is weird. No shit, dude.
Yeah.
Well, and look, ultimately with something like Twin Peaks: The Return versus Twin Peaks: The Original Show that was aired on network television versus Showtime, I'm sorry, but I would much rather watch David Lynch's show not on network TV, not on AB fucking C. I'd rather watch it on Showtime because they will allow him to do what he wants.
Right.
And The Return is what he wanted. Were people upset that it didn't end the way they wanted? Sure, but you know what? At the end of the day, fuck you. That's my response.
I mean, he was pretty much trolling everybody with the whole Dougie character and, like, when is he going to go back to Agent Cooper and stuff. That was amazing.
Oh, yeah, but you know what? That's one of the best, like, parts of that Return.
Oh, yeah.
We want to see Agent Cooper again. Fucking wait.
Yeah, you're going to wait all the way.
One of the few things that David Lynch, like, fully delivers on.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is a promise kept.
I mean,
you didn't get answers on everything, or a lot of things, but
I pretty much started crying when Agent Cooper came back and gave his thumbs up. I was like, oh my God, it's him.
And again, I understand people not liking David Lynch. I don't prescribe to it. It's not my thing. The show, The Return had 0.5 viewers at the beginning and 0.2 at the end. I mean, that's what we're talking about with David Lynch here, is like he's not for everybody, but the people that love him and get it, they're there all the way. All the way.
No, I was going to say, yep, even if we know we're probably not going to be like I knew going into Inland Empire it wasn't going to be my favorite thing, and it was that long, and I was like, screw it, I'm going to watch it anyway because it's David Lynch and I want to see what he's doing.
Yeah, like if you like, that's the thing with David Lynch. If you're into David Lynch, you have to fully commit. You can't half-ass it watching his movies. You're not going to just put Eraserhead on in the background. You're not going to just put Mulholland Drive on, I'm assuming, in the background. You're definitely not going to put Lost Highway on in the background. Like, these are movies you have to fully commit to. If you're going to sit down and watch them, you got to watch them and give it your full attention. Like you said, Mike, let it wash over you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jess, what would you give Inland Empire out of 5?
I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. And you know what? At the beginning of this podcast, I thought it was going to be a 2.5, but since we've been talking about it, it went up a little bit.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, since you brought up the whole idea of like the top 3 David Lynch films, I've just been obsessing over that. And I'm just like, God, what would my top 3 be? I think it'd have to be Dune, Eraserhead, and Blue Velvet.
I would have to say that mine would be Blue Velvet, Eraserhead, and probably, I mean, are we talking about just films or just his whole filmography? Because, I mean, Twin Peaks would be in there, but... Yeah,
I was debating about Fire Walk with Me, because I love that movie so much.
Right, exactly. I mean, I do really love Wild at Heart. I mean, well, yeah, see, it's...
Yeah, right? It's not easy. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome. God bless us, everyone. See, for me, it's still Lost Highway, and then Dune, and then this movie. But, again, I also haven't seen 5 of the 10, so...
Yeah, you Kind of got to see them all.
Yeah.
I would probably say Blue Velvet, or Eraserhead.
You can't say Blue Velvet twice.
No.
Why did you say Blue Velvet 5 times?
Say it 3 times. If you say it 3 times, Dennis Hopper appears.
I hope so. Well, I'd love to have him back. Remember when he was King Koopa in Super Mario Brothers?
Oh, I just watched that the other day.
So did I. Oh my God. What a tour de force.
Because I was drunk.
No, my wife put it on and wanted to watch it. Actively wanted to watch it.
Oh.
Did you follow it up?
Mario, and he's Luigi Mario. It's just a fucking... Mike, you've never even seen that movie, have you?
No, I haven't.
Wow.
Too bad we didn't choose that for the 400th episode.
There's still 350. Yeah, no, I precluding the films I haven't seen right now, Lost Highway, Dune, Inland Empire. Will I maybe like some of the other ones in December more? Sure. But I don't know if they're going to unseat Lost Highway.
Sounds like you liked Lost Highway a lot more than Jess did.
Oh, yeah.
A lot more.
The first time she gets to talk David Lynch on my podcast, and it is a movie she doesn't even like. Yep. Oh, God.
It's okay.
Oh,
we will reconvene on Mulholland Drive.
we will come back and talk about something that Jess likes. For myself, though, for this film, I give it a 3.5. I'm with y'all. I think it's fun, it's interesting, it's weird, and that's kind of the David Lynch thing. Is it's weird, but it's not weird for weird's sake. It's weird with a purpose, and that's why I like David Lynch.
Agreed.
So we'll take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Kulturecast.
Something happens to you when you leave this town. The farther away, the hazier it all gets. But me, I never left. I remember all of it.
To the losers.
We made an oath.
Swear? If it isn't dead, if it ever comes back, we'll come back to it.
We didn't stop it.
Pennywise.
The clown. We can't let it happen again.
Hello?
Jess!
Hello.
Please.
For 27 years, I dreamt of you. I craved you. I've missed you.
We need to finish it. For good.
I've seen all of us die. It consumes us from the inside until we don't have a choice anymore.
You lied. And I died. You lied. And I died.
That's right. On the next Kulturecast, we're going to be talking about It, Chapter 2. Oh, boy. Scary clowns are scary. I can't wait.
Yes, I can't.
I know you can. I can wait.
The tables will be turned this time coming.
Yeah, I did not like it. I did. Uh-oh. Oh, geez. And yeah, Jess, you're going to be joining me. Matt may be joining us. We're not sure yet. Who knows? But until then, where can people find you, Jess?
You can find me on Twitter at writer Jess Byard, and you can find me on a little podcast called The One Season Show that I co-host with you, Chris. And we talk about shows that only lasted one season. And we are about like halfway through Werewolf 1987 right now. So that is where we're at. You can catch up with our 2 episodes that we have out. Third one is coming soon.
It's the Incredible Hulk with a werewolf instead of a Marvel character.
Pretty much.
That's how they Chuck probably Connors. Sold it. Yeah, and Chuck Connors. Sort of, maybe. Probably not.
For a while.
Pay me more and I'll come back. Pay me more, I'll come back. Oh, jeez. Where can people find you, Mike?
They can find me and you, Chris, over at the Kolchak Tapes, which is a podcast we do, in case you didn't realize, all about the Night Stalker, Carl Kolchak.
And we're nearing the end of that.
Yeah, and then I won't have anything to do.
Oh, bullshit. more like we're starting something else, and if Barney Miller is still at the top of the pops... we can't make that joke because Jimmy Savile. If Barney Miller is still at the top of the quiz, I guess that's what we're doing.
Who's Jimmy Savile?
Oh, don't even start.
Is he the child molester?
He sure is. The British child molester.
All right. You seem to have a lot of child molesters on your show.
Yeah. What?
None of them on this one.
None of them have ever been on this show.
Oh, wait. No, that's my friend Josh Hadley. Sorry. Yeah.
Ooh, what? Jesus. Throw some shade.
Oh, no. One of his co-hosts actually ended up being convicted of child pornography.
Christ.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All my former co-hosts have dropped off the face of the earth, so I guess I should consider myself lucky.
He had a real moral quandary as far as, like, do I keep the old episodes up?
No, delete them. No. Fuck, man. Moral quandary my fucking ass.
Get the hell. Yeah, that's just, if anything, to save your own face, just get rid of that. Ooh.
Delete them all, and then you apologize in the next podcast you do and say, I didn't fucking know. Yep. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Oh, God, that's just... If there's anyone on this podcast that I've ever had on here that's a child molester, I didn't know that they were one when I had them on.
This podcast is taking a dark turn.
Yeah, it's a good sound.
Darkest timeline, folks. The 300th episode of the Kulturecast is now the last one, pending child molestation accusations against unnamed co-host. No. You can find me on Twitter, casualty_Chris. Like Mike mentioned, I do a podcast with him on Kolchak. I do a podcast with Jess on One Season Shows. I also do a podcast with Father Malone, who could not be with us this evening, on Chronicles from the Crypt, which is a Tales from the Crypt podcast. And Mike, Father Malone, and I do a podcast on Twilight Zone 1985, otherwise known as Dreams for Sale.
Dreams for Sale.
That's the name. Thank you for that. That's my favorite part about bringing up the title, is I know I can get a little musical number from Mike White. And as always, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Kulturecast. Kulturecast.com is where you can find the podcast. If you have been with me for any amount of time, thank you so much for listening. Continue to listen if that's your thing. If this is the first time you've joined us for the podcast, awesome. If it's not, thank you again, and we'll catch you on the next episode.